I don't know how many people know this, but there have been 5 terrorism bulletins issued over the past year. And the latest came out about a week ago from the Department of Homeland Security that the United States is in a heightened threat environment, in part because of people who, quote, sow discord and undermine public trust in government institutions. Concerning to a lot of people, Kevin.
Yes, high alert. It seems like these days, if you want to speak out against mandates, you might get canceled or bullied.
Yeah.
If you speak out at a school board meeting, you'll get labeled a bad parent or a domestic terrorist, perhaps. Now the Department of Homeland Security, which should be busy, it seems to me, looking for all those Al-Qaeda members that were released from the Afghan prisons, are more concerned, it appears, by identifying people they say are involved in the proliferation of false or misleading narratives. Joining us now is Lisa McClain, Congresswoman from the 10th District. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thanks for joining us this morning. Did you get your bulletin?
I didn't get that bulletin, unfortunately, but I've seen it all over social media, and we had a brief on it, and it would almost be funny and unbelievable if it wasn't so true. I mean, let's first take a look at what the definition of terrorism is: the unlawful use of violence and intimidation. Okay, so if I don't wear a mask or I speak out at a school board, I'm a domestic terrorist? I mean, seriously? What is going on? I mean, the people, the American people, they have to be scratching their head and thinking, do we live in China? Do we live in a communist country, or is this America? Because the policies and what I'm seeing sure doesn't seem like America, the home of the free, to me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like this is what Homeland Security should be working on to me either. But, false and misleading information can be problematic, especially if it's coming from people that you trust or tend to trust. Is there anything we should be doing in that arena, or should we just say, look, people, you have to do your homework. You have to check and recheck to make sure what you're reading is accurate and true?
Well, what we really should do, and I'm going to say it again, if we're so concerned about terrorism, how about we start at the southern border with, I don't know if you guys caught the story, but we had a known terrorist that was actually confirmed, verified on the terrorist watch list. And that person, even though DHS and ICE knew about it, they still released them in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, I'm confused. We have known terrorists that we know are getting released into the interior of our country, into our state. Yet we aren't going to spend any time on that. We're going to stick our head in the sand, pretend that doesn't exist, and we're going to go and try and silence moms at school boards because they don't want their kids to wear a mask at school.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we did that story, and we were also surprised to learn that local law enforcement had no idea that this guy was on the terror watch list and that he was living in Dearborn. Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, he says, quote, "These threat actors seek to exacerbate societal friction to sow discord and undermine public trust in government." So my question is, who exactly are these threat actors? Is he talking about Antifa? Is he talking about the KKK, or is he claiming that people
BLM?
talk about masks?
Is he talking about BLM? I mean,
Right.
who are we talking
Who
about?
are they? Are they people who talk about masks and the mandates, or the NIH are at that level of a danger? Is he specifying yet who these people are? Because he said he'd be willing to talk about this to the American public.
Yeah, to my knowledge, he has not. And really what's going on, which is so sad, is this administration, if you don't agree with them, I mean, we can do it time and time again, but if you don't agree with them, they try and silence your voice, police your thoughts. That is not America. That is not free speech, and that is not free thought.
I talk to people in the FBI, and they tell me that there are Al-Qaeda groups that are out there on the internet, on social media, trying to indoctrinate Americans to commit terrorist acts here in the United States. Why aren't we hearing about that from Homeland Security? Why aren't they telling us how to look out for that to help make sure that our kids aren't on websites or in areas where that's going on?
Because it doesn't fit their narrative, unfortunately. I mean, with the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan and over 5,000 known terrorists being released out of prisons, our southern border open, and we already know now that these terrorists are coming into our state, my goodness, we couldn't focus on that because that would look really bad on this administration that is already failing miserably. So we have to change the narrative to, if you don't get vaccinated and you wear a mask, you're the Antichrist. I mean, you're a terrorist. Come on.
Well, you mentioned the narrative there.
The narrative isn't working.
The narrative
It's really
isn't working, but the threat that he talked about comes from the proliferation, as Kevin mentioned earlier, the proliferation of false or misleading narratives. So that point right there is what's concerning, because when people's speech nowadays deviates from the government's narrative, it's called misinformation. So if they call that a misleading narrative, are they also claim the person who verbalizes that narrative is a terrorist threat?
Yeah, and that is concerning. And perhaps we should start with our own. How many false statements has our government made?
Yeah, are we supposed to call police and report these when we see them? Is everyone going to be rounded up who said something in error or false on the internet? What are we supposed to do with this bulletin from Homeland Security?
I think we all need a civics lesson and a government lesson in the Constitution, which is freedom of speech. You can have freedom of speech, and we have to do everything in our power to protect that right, or the government bit by bit and inch by inch will begin to try and silence your voice if you don't agree with them. That sounds a lot like communist China to me.
You know, in the bulletin it says speech essentially that encourages unrest, which could potentially inspire acts of violence. It seems to me this is a knock on Donald Trump from a speech on January 6, 2021, that preceded the riot at the U.S. Capitol. The speech that they say inspires acts of violence. And of course, that speech itself, that's the controversy in and of itself. But to that larger point of speech, inspiring, are there examples that you can cite that this actually is a true statement, that there are speeches out there or words that can inspire people to commit acts of violence? And should that be looked at with with more serious level scrutiny?
I think at the end of the day, we really need to start focusing on some basics. So I believe in individual liberties. I believe I own my actions. And I think that's a big contradiction to what's happening right now. I wish this administration would focus on some real pertinent issues like inflation, like the supply chain crisis, like the crisis at the border, instead of trying to manufacture and round up people that don't want to wear masks and don't want to get vaccinated. That is gravely concerning to me.
Congresswoman Lisa McClain, thanks for joining us and discussing the latest threat bulletin out there from the Department of Homeland Security. We appreciate your perspective very much. Thank you.
Thank you as always. Have a great day.